I want to talk about self-compassion in the context of parenting. If we're just meeting for the first time, I'm Dr. Catherine Endy, the family life coach, and I help parents of 2 to 10-year-olds feel calmer, more confident, and more connected to their kids so they can actually enjoy parenting and family life. So I did my doctoral research on the concept of self-compassion as it relates to parenting stress. And of course, I have a lot to say about that because I spent a long time researching that. But I just want to give you a quick outline of this concept of self-compassion because I was talking with a client about it recently this week. And my client was curious that if he offered himself too much self-compassion, especially when he made mistakes, that perhaps he would let himself off the hook too much and therefore not accomplish his goals or achieve anything, or in the context of parenting, that all hell breaks loose because, well, I'm just being compassionate toward myself as a parent, and so I don't have to set boundaries. And so I think it would be helpful to kind of deconstruct this concept of self-compassion because I think it's a new concept for some people, and it's not just softness. It's not just being real nice to yourself. It's actually kind of a complex construct that has a lot of components to it. So I think it's helpful to talk about this in terms of these kind of pairs of constructs, of positives and negatives. So the first one is self-kindness versus self-judgment. And what this means is, I think this is sort of what most people kind of associate with the concept of self-compassion, that you're treating yourself with the same care and compassion that you would treat a cherished loved one or a friend or even your own child, right? If you listen to the voice in your head, I want you to ask yourself, would I let someone speak to my child that way? Would I let someone speak to my partner that way? And the more we get in tune with and paying attention to that inner critic, we realize, like, there is no way I would let someone talk about my husband that way. There's no way I would let someone talk about my best friend that way. So I want to encourage you, as you get familiar with this concept of self-compassion, to really start to pay attention to what that inner voice is saying. And so, of course, the corollary here is self-judgment, right? Oh, I yelled at my kids again. I'm the worst parent ever. They're never going to amount to anything because I've just destroyed their self-esteem, et cetera, right? But then if you listen to what you're saying to yourself, you're destroying yourself on the inside. So self-compassion means speaking to yourself kindly. So when you make a mistake, when you have a hard day, speaking to yourself in a way that you would speak to a loved one. The next pair of concepts is common humanity versus isolation. And I think this one is really, really important and powerful in parenting because parenting can be so very isolating, especially if you have a highly sensitive child, a neurodivergent child, if you're a stay-at-home parent, if you don't have family or community around you, it can feel very, very isolating. And I know for me, when my kids were little and one of my kids was especially struggling, I felt misunderstood. I felt like people had no idea the kinds of things that I was dealing with kind of after hours, after school, from, dinner time to bedtime. And I didn't know that lots of parents deal with the kinds of things that I was dealing with. So connecting to this concept that we're all in this together, that we as parents deal with the same kinds of things as other parents. This is why I think parenting groups and programs in which you can gather with other parents in a group setting can be so, so beneficial. This is something that I offer in my coaching universe, is some groups for parents, because understanding and hearing other people's stories helps you to let yourself off the hook a little bit more and understand that I'm not the only person dealing with this. My kid is not the only kid who's losing their mind from dinner time to bedtime. My kid's not the only kid who just won't listen. So connecting to this sense of common humanity or common parenthood, maybe we could call it, can be very soothing to the nervous system and reduces parenting stress. In my research, I found that self-compassion, just in a nutshell, self-compassion was associated with reduced parenting stress. So The next pair of concepts is the idea of mindfulness versus over-identification. Now, these sound like fancy terms, but let's unpack this a little bit. Mindfulness just means paying attention in a particular way on purpose. It means attention, attunement, awareness, being aware that you're aware. And over-identification, on the other hand, means kind of unconsciously over-identifying with your emotions. So getting swept up in your emotional experience, getting swept up in your kid's emotional experience. When you get into that self-judgment, kind of getting into a swirl or a spiral around the way that makes you feel. Versus mindfulness really is the process of observing yourself having an experience. So what do I mean by that? We often say things like, I am angry. And that, even though this is a very subtle kind of verbal distinction, saying I am angry is a form of identifying with your emotion, over identifying with your emotion, because you're basically saying I identify with the feeling of anger, versus subtle shift, I feel angry. When you can identify it as a feeling state is a passing state of being, right? When you feel something, it moves through you. You might have a physiological response, but it ends, right? A feeling state ends. You don't stay angry forever. You don't stay sad forever. You don't stay disappointed forever. You don't stay happy forever, right? So a feeling state is something temporary and passing. So to be able to shift your language and your inner monologue to I feel a certain way rather than I am a certain way, this helps. This is a form of mindfulness, and it helps us to be more self-compassionate and to get out of a spiral of over-identifying with emotions. So I hope that this unpacking of the concept of self-compassion is helpful to you. I will certainly do some more videos on how self-compassion applies to parenting. But if this resonates with you, if this is helpful to you, if you have questions about it, please let me know in the comments. Please like and follow and share this video with a friend, and I will see you next time.